Hi there. This is huge breaking news. Recently leaked spy footage from House of the Dragon Season 3 filming confirms that Daemon Targaryen's storyline has been significantly changed to now have him directly leading Rhaenyra's army in the massive Battle of Tumbleton, which will be the action climax of the finale. Point of this video is that while this is a relatively big change in some ways, it's not the letter of the book. I actually still feel that it is in the spirit of the book, what we specifically know from just the spy footage, without speculating on ripple effects. I actually think this is a pretty good idea and will satisfy everyone. For the casual viewers, they were complaining in Season 2 that Daemon doesn't have a lot to do, particularly he's not in battle scenes. Well, that's what happens in the books at this point. And to other book fans, this isn't really that much of, it's fanfic to me, that this is an army that Daemon sent to Tumbleton in the book. The TV show is having him personally go with them. That's still the same character arc, and just thinking of the plot mechanics, going by what we know right now, this isn't really that drastic of a change. And I'm pretty much okay with this. Other YouTube channels who have remarked on it so far, it's breaking news, have generally also had the same conclusion, that cautious optimism, this isn't the end of the world, and okay, we'll do that. Now, I'm doing this audio only over the one slide of what we got, because I'm just trying to race it off breaking news. But we got spy reports that Matt Smith is in the Reach subplot. We got those a couple of days ago, or reported on it. And spy photos of him at the Hightower army camp treating with Lord Ormond Hightower and his nephew Daemon the Daring Targaryen. And I stand by what I said then, that this is kind of what happened in the book, but done through written correspondence, that after the Blacks take King's Landing, they offer generous peace terms to the remaining Green armies. Bend the knee, we'll pardon everyone, the war will be over. And they accurately point out, you wouldn't be offering us generous surrender terms if you were still in position of strength, that they realize Rhaenyra's forces are half exhausted from the effort they had to do defeating the Lannister army, taking King's Landing. They're running low on men, they're running low on money, they still have more dragons, but all hope is not lost for the Greens. They know they have the advantages of both of those. They're going to keep fighting. So, okay, this was done through written correspondence in a book. I can see, okay, for the purposes of the format shift, it makes more sense to have it a dialogue scene. And people, they have jetpacks. No, they have big dragons, which can fly vast distances. Not from Blackwater Bay to the Wall in a single bound, but just like Harrenhal is like a day's flight from King's Landing and from Dragonstone. That we have a general sense of how far these things are. That, yeah, you go slower in wartime because you're worried about being attacked. But the idea that Daemon on his own could go as an envoy, I didn't have a problem with that. The dialogue could be terrible. I'm admitting that, but in general principle, this wasn't a bad idea. Now, as an extension of that, we have not photos, but actual spy footage from a distance, but it's from Episode 8, the finale. That he was treating with them in Episode 4. This is the finale, Episode 8. We can tell because we know who the directors are, and they're in both shots. And it is very clearly Matt Smith giving a rallying speech to his army on the eve of battle. You can't really see Matt Smith himself too clearly, doesn't matter. The reporter said he's there, and you can hear his booming voice over the fields. You can even make out what he's saying, and he specifically says, "Today is the day we destroy the Hightowers." So this isn't the fish feed or an earlier one, because we know that's like Episode 6, that this is a finale, and plus the fish feed is by a lakeshore. This is the middle of a field, so it's pretty clear he's going to be taking part in this. Some people wonder, well, why is he riding in front of them on a horse and not... The leak was he dismounts from Caraxes, gets on a horse to go into the camp, give a speech. I'm assuming he remounts Caraxes. That could happen. Probably what's going to happen. Unless he has to leave at the last minute, which is possible, but I doubt. Like, we would never get spy footage of that because it's on a green screen on a dragon. We'd have to see what he's doing. Unless we got spy footage of him fighting on foot, which we haven't yet. So I think he's going to be on Caraxes. functionally, this really isn't that big of a change to me as a book fan. The parts we specifically know and have confirmed, at least, that Daemon doesn't do that much after the fall of King's Landing, which we think is episode 3. Well, he would be, on small council meetings, and he's the one, the two angels on Rhaenyra's shoulder, he's the one arguing to be ruthless. Corlys is the one going, no, offer them generous surrender terms, we just need to end the war quickly, because anything could go wrong while we're still fighting the back and forth, and there probably will be some good small council scenes. But otherwise, he wouldn't have nearly as much to do in the back half of the season. What he does is he goes hunting for Aemond on Vhagar with his one-man war to burn out the Riverlands. And I can see how, he sent an army south, you might as well have him go with that army, because the other stuff wouldn't sustain many episodes. And it's weird just how many casual popcorn viewers and clickbaiters were saying Season 2 was terrible because Daemon wasn't in a big battle. They were actively trying to emasculate Daemon by not, actual quote, they hate his Sigma energy in a huge battle, whatever that means. This is what happened in Season 2, the corresponding parts of the book. It's one line. Daemon goes to Harrenhal, rallies the River Lords, and they did what they could with it. And now they're inventing, let's have him actually take part in some battles that he sent armies on in the book, is probably a pendulum swing in the better direction. Again, in general principle, on paper, maybe they'll execute it poorly. Maybe the dialogue is terrible. But in general principle, I don't have a problem with that. And just the clickbaiters with, this will win over a large part of the casual viewers who went on the fence because they were bored with all the character development Daemon was going through, which even I, who liked it, felt the pacing is a little off. If they'd been allowed to do live rewrites, they would have refined or cut some of these scenes for pacing. Like, 1 or 2 were a little too much, like in episodes 5 and 6. But overall, other parts of the Harrenhal stuff were great. People loved it in episode 4, they loved it in episode 7, it's just it dragged a little mid-season. But I have seen, like, over an hour-long videos and podcasts from clickbaiters who don't regularly cover the Westeros franchise, saying, with vapid pseudo-intellectualism, in the tone of an intellectual thing, going, well, the key point that they forgot here is that a season needs to end with a big battle. As if it's this profound explanation, whereas we, the hardcore fans, are sitting around discussing Sansa's story arc in Game of Thrones and how the ups and downs of it, or Rhaenyra's story arc, the ups and downs of it, or does this character have narrative agency? Is this character, just their concept of something profound is, you need to have a big battle in it. And that's really what most people were complaining about. And not even most people. I spent a lot of time watching reactor channels, the main ones. They were annoyed that the last 2 episodes of the season got cut. We know they planned Battle of the Gullet for episode 9. Alan Taylor admitted he was supposed to direct it. They're frustrated that got pushed to next season, but they're not revolting against it. A lot of them did understand there was a strike, they were fighting with the studio. They didn't jump to the conclusion, Sarah Hess eats dogs and hates men, and honestly thought this was a better ending. Sarah Hess is the one who told us, guys, they actually did cut the ending off. This is not where we wanted to end it. The clickbaiters just need attention. In many ways, it doesn't matter what we say, positive or negative. Us, the defenders, or the critics, I've realized just how much it's a vocal minority compared to the general audience. That the clickbaiters filling our comment sections and yelling so much, they are a vocal minority relative to us. And even for us, the book fans, most casual viewers don't know the books. They don't know and wouldn't be upset about characters that were cut or merged. So, and I sympathize with Condell's point that this has to function as a TV show first. Of course, Benioff and Weiss try to use the same line of argument, and it's, no, this doesn't even function as a TV show. When people try to use that straw man argument that, oh, you either think all change is good or all change is bad. Therefore, if you think change is good, you must like the Sansa assault and Dorne and Stannis in Season 5. And no, because we have judgment that those were bad changes. If you're thinking of, oh, well, all change is bad, well, so many people going in the comments, oh, well, House of the Dragon is fanfic. Any adaptation would be changing things. And what was King Viserys in Season 1? George R.R. Martin openly admitted this isn't the character I wrote, I actually think it's better. But it was in the spirit that he was trying to grow out of an outline, because a key distinction is Game of Thrones was a book. And yes, it was a finished book that they chose to throw out Sansa's Veil story from. The entire reason we're angry about the Dorne stuff or Stannis is this is stuff from a finished book. You didn't run out of books. That's a lie you keep repeating until you think you can bludgeon people into believing it, because you know your ass is in the fire that these were changes they chose to make. But also Helena. Martin really likes their Helena. It's fanfic. It was always changing things in Season 1. And where were you saying, I think Rhaenyra Alicent went on a little too long, their friendship in Season 2, but they don't have much to do at this point in the book. They had to give Rhaenyra stuff to do because she's basically comatose from her stillbirth for weeks. She's bedridden. And yeah, I don't think it landed very well, but I know from the book that she has a lot to do next season, so I'm not that worried. So long as her relationship with Alicent crumbles again, because after the Battle of the Gullet, after Jace dies, Rhaenyra becomes a real hardliner. That she becomes ruthless. And I think that'll break her up with Alicent. I'll be disappointed if that doesn't happen. But it could, so I'm not crying foul yet. But where were these legions of people dumping on you woke guys are making Rhaenyra and Alicent pillow friends, to use the Wheel of Time phrase? There wasn't complaint about that in Season 1 when it worked. There wasn't complaint about changing Viserys. So there was always something good throughout Season 2. There were problems which I mostly think were strike-related, studio-related, and yes, some were story-related. I think the reason Martin is angry at them is over cutting out Maelor, which I think they cut because they felt it was gratuitously violent, as opposed to let's show off Sophie Turner for an Emmy Award, put her in an assault scene. I disagree with what they're doing with cutting Maelor, but I can see how that's a rational concern. I'm not sure, and they might, with, the butterflies, they might make a substitute for that really doesn't work. They might do no substitute. I don't know. I'll have to judge it when I see it. But all these people who needed to see Season 2 fail, it's like sharks when there's blood in the water, or vultures. A lot of them are just clickbaiters who want attention for anything, because the internet is about say negative things trend better in the algorithm. But for so many, I think it's people who were humiliated by Season 1, shaming what Benioff and Weiss did, that so many people put Benioff and Weiss on a pedestal, that when Season 8 came, it could not compute. And then following that House of the Dragon Season 1 was really good. It proved it wasn't the source material that was bad. It's not this is an unfilmable universe. It shamed that those guys who you really, for a decade, the media was telling people, these are the new J.J. Abrams, these are the new Lucas. Not that Abrams, his star has fallen too, along with Whedon and stuff. There was a lot of that in the 2010s, putting super creators up on pedestals. A lot of the people I'm seeing saying this or dumping on the show are bitter about the success of Season 1. What matters is measured criticism by real channels that are reporting on this. One of the best experiences I've had, and I'll leave on this, I had recently was, at the start of summer, I had this hour-long podcast with Grease Goblins and Voice of Old Town. And we were discussing changes to Season 3. Will Season 3 still be good? They released the first 2 short parts, but the full core of it's an hour. They said they're going to be releasing that next week, the 1-year anniversary of the Season 2 finale. Words cannot express enough just what a wonderful experience that was. That instead of fighting or yelling, it was that true what you hope for dialectic, where I was expressing, this is why I'm optimistic about Season 3, but listing off, and these are my concerns. And they were saying, well, these are reasons we should be pessimistic, that don't just have blind faith in it, but we were each mutually acknowledging each other's points, and it felt like a real productive discussion that led to true analysis. And I'm really going to try to promote it when it comes out, but this reminds me of that. Of all we know for certain is that in isolation, general principle, have Daemon actually go with the army he sends to Tumbleton, because it both ties Daeron and the Reach arc back into the main characters, and gives Daemon more to do at a time when he isn't doing much. In and of itself, I actually think this is a good idea. Not just passable, but a good idea. I am worried about what they're going to do with Daeron and Maelor, or Otto, and a couple of other characters. But I can only judge that when I see it. If you're looking for... So much of late Game of Thrones turned into theorization that became the real point. It wasn't about what would actually happen next season, but coming up with entertaining theories. And for people going, why aren't you theorizing more about what could go wrong? I admit on general principle a lot could go wrong. And I'm not going to invent... It's weird when you see their process that they invent theories and then treat them as fact. To the point it's this internet rabbit hole, like a QAnon thing, of, yeah, there's a couple of things that could go wrong. I'm not going to speculate on them, just I acknowledge that it might not be good. Because for them, the theory is the point. It's coming up with these elaborate diss tracks, almost, of these are crazy things. Sarah Hess eats dogs. They're going to be doing all sorts of crazy stuff with Rhaenyra. Just, I'm judging what I see on evidence, and how many other channels are actually going over filming reports. Like, half a dozen even run these filming leaks, much less report. Even, like, when I'm saying the negative channels bashing on this... A lot of them don't even report on these filming leaks. I haven't even seen... I've seen people in comment sections. But the clickbaiters are bored enough and lazy enough that they're not even trying to spin these leaks in a negative way in terms of actual YouTube channels. Just the usual, took all 30 seconds to type something in a comment section. So few people are actually willing to even look at just, let's focus on the evidence we have. And I admit I'm very worried about Season 3. It is make or break, and because Martin didn't clearly say... He should have just come out and said what he was upset about. I might disagree with Condell, but I don't want to throw him under the bus like that, because you gave him an unadaptable... The books weren't written with an eye towards adaptation, and you gave him a history book outline. Sometimes their changes are bad, others were really good. And Red Team Review keeps saying, what matters is if it's a good change, people don't care it's a change. That is the real measure of this, is it making good television? Even if it's not entirely book accurate. I mean, I loved Oscar Tully in Season 2. He's a condensation character. He's like his father and his younger brother condensed into one character, and it works. Because it wouldn't make sense to have all three characters in a TV show with time and resources. Just, it's fine. So I am looking forward to this with cautious optimism. And if there are other leaks about what they're actually doing with Daemon or other things, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Of how are they handling this. In general principle, I actually think this is a pretty good idea. And I'm actually excited now. And like I said to Grease Goblins and Voice of Old Town in our podcast a couple of weeks ago, which will be online next week, we have seen, from Season 5 to Season 6 of Game of Thrones... that the general audience just cares about are the main characters having cool action scenes. And a big complaint of a lot of them was the Daemon stuff in Harrenhal was a little slow. They didn't even like the good episodes of that, like him meeting Oscar Tully, like the first time, the episode 4 when he meets Alice Rivers and talks to Oscar Tully. I love that episode. I saw reviews outright hating on that. And they came here for the tits and dragons, but... So many people now are saying House of the Dragon is dead. We thought the same thing after Game of Thrones Season 5, and then Season 6 just gave the Battle of the Bastards, which was bad, empty spectacle, and if even something as poorly written as the Battle of the Bastards could win back the audience to say, this is a masterpiece, this fixed everything, when it didn't. Unlike Benioff and Weiss, Condell and Hess are actually competent writers. They have proven they are competent writers. Adding Daemon to a few more battle scenes will whittle down a lot of the critics, without really changing that much from the book. They might have changed other things, I don't know. I'll react to that when I learn about it. But so far, the reaction from all these other channels like Talking Thrones, Preston Jacobs' Red Team Review, have said the same things that I'm saying about Daemon in The Reach, which is, it gives him more to do, it doesn't really change his character arc that much, and while things could go wrong, I'm going to withhold judgment until I see the whole thing in full context, rather than condemn it things that might go wrong off-screen, that we don't even know about from these spy photos. Going by what we've seen so far, I am actually cautiously optimistic about this, and I wonder as weeks go by, as word spreads to a wider audience, Daemon's actually in some pretty big battle scenes next season, will we see a tone shift as we saw with Game of Thrones Season 6? With the poorly written Battle of the Bastards, because this has happened before. The audience is fickle.